New Hampshire and Vermont have actually done relatively well, and unemployment rates there are quite low in the 5 to 6% range. Connecticut and Maine sort of in the middle by some standard measures, a little worse by some, better by others. The interesting one is Massachusetts. Massachusetts' performance has been stronger than the nation's. This has been sort of greeted, celebrated quite a bit, and there's almost a little bit of triumphalism at times, it seems, about Massachusetts is doing really, really well. I would say the situation is Massachusetts is doing mildly better than the nation. The general patterns of the recession have been very similar in Massachusetts than the nation. Steep fall off in employment. Construction has collapsed. Housing prices have fallen. Foreclosures have risen sharply. But it is true that the fall has not been quite as steep in Massachusetts as the nation, and the recovery has been a little more vigorous, and the unemployment rate is somewhat a little bit lower. This is all good. But what's really different is that this is such a change from the last time around. 2001, Massachusetts did much worse than the nation, and of course, some of those of you who have memories that go back that far, the early 90s, Massachusetts and the rest of the New England did much, much worse. And in both those earlier periods, Massachusetts experienced significant outmigration, net outmigration to other parts of the country. This time we are not experiencing net outmigration. And why is that? It's because the other parts of the country are not doing better than us, whereas last time they were doing much better. Indeed, some of our favored destinations for Massachusetts folks, like Florida, are actually doing quite a bit worse. Now, in the interest of time, I'll keep this very short, but I would like to just comment very briefly about findings from a recent sort of analysis of small Latino businesses in the cities of Springfield. We have been involved at the Boston Fed, have been involved for about 2.5 years now in sort of a outreach and research project in the city of Springfield, Massachusetts. The reasons why Springfield are too long, it would take me too long to get into it. Our goal is to help Springfield improve its economic performance, and in the process help basically Western Massachusetts and Connecticut, Hartford area also improve, because Springfield, despite economic problems, is the economic engine for Western Massachusetts. Even though what we bring to the table is primarily a research capability and people and an ability to convene people. People do come when we invite them often, but our president keeps saying, I want some change to actually happen. I don't want just another study. In fact, though, we actually have done another study. We've done 9 studies. They're on our public website. That's not, though, just because we can't resist doing research. It was sort of, we needed to inform ourselves about Springfield. Springfield sort of felt we've been a much studied city, and they didn't want, so not another study. The studies that have attracted the most attention have been one sort of compared Springfield with 25 other mid-sized former manufacturing centers to find out, did some of them do better than Springfield, and if so, why? Indeed, we did find about 10 of the 25 had done better, and the rest had done about the same or worse. In New England, among the ones that did better were Providence, Worcester, and New Haven. We looked at them to find out what was different, what were the distinguishing features, and a distinguishing feature was collaborative leadership. That business, government officials, civic leaders all came together to promote the city and its well-being. There was also an openness and a recognition to new population, racial and ethnic groups in the cities that perhaps Springfield did not have. Springfield's current leadership has been quite receptive to this, and actually 35 business and public leaders from Springfield went to one of the to North Carolina, to Winston-Salem and Greensboro, which are also sort of among the group of improving cities, to see what they did right. And they came back all charged up, feeling that Springfield really does have, there's nothing really that inherently keeps Springfield back. But that they also came away, one thing about Winston-Salem in particular is that business, public leaders, civic leaders all know what the vision for Winston-Salem is. They all embrace it, and they all can say where do they fit. So we felt that was a very satisfying experience. Our latest paper looks at Latino entrepreneurs in Springfield. Why Latinos? It's at least 30% of the population, and it's growing very, very rapidly. The Latino neighborhoods are the poorest neighborhoods in Springfield. So we wondered whether entrepreneurship could be a source of employment opportunities. The data show that sort of Latino small businesses are underrepresented in Springfield given their share of the population, although not so much compared to other cities similarly. In fact, the data is probably, some of you know who work in this area, is not terribly satisfying. But what was really interesting is we did some fairly lengthy interviews with about a dozen Latino entrepreneurs in Springfield. I found this very interesting. It sort of resonated with what sort of other studies have found, but it was really very interesting. Basically, these were primarily retail businesses in Springfield. These entrepreneurs had become entrepreneurs because they wanted to be their own boss, and they had achieved sufficient success to support their families and send their children to college. However, although they wanted to be their own boss, they worked extremely long hours, and they did not want their children to follow in their own footsteps. They didn't want them to continue. None of these entrepreneurs had received any technical assistance, or even though Springfield does have a number of programs that provide such technical assistance, they all had financed their businesses, and in some cases these businesses had expanded from their own savings or family resources, so they weren't getting any sort of external from bank credit. Most of them do not belong to any business association. They provide valuable services to the community beyond the actual businesses they provide. They are involved, they provide various services like translation services, filling out documents, emergency transportation. The relations with the city of Springfield are actually okay. That was an encouraging thing, and they were pleased that crime was down. But the striking thing about these interviews was the degree to which these entrepreneurs were disconnected from the various programs that were available. And Springfield does have programs that are sort of for small business. They have a small business loan program. They had a neighborhood storefront improvement program that are clearly intended to reach this type of business. But this was clearly a revelation to us a bit that this is not a case if you sort of build it, they will come. I think the big message was we have to reach these businesses in particular, we needed to reach out, Springfield needs to reach out aggressively to approach them, and probably through Latino organizations. It was rather noteworthy that the interviews were all done by an economist who is herself a Latina, and she was talking about how, they sat down and talked, and they asked her about her family and where she came from, and sort of there was a whole very different sense than, a very strong cultural affinity, and that really mattered. So we came away, this is a promising area for Springfield and other cities. It seems it has potential for job and wealth building, but any organization needs to reach out quite aggressively to these entrepreneurs. Thank you, and again,
Thank you, Lynn, for those wonderful comments. Good morning, everybody.